There's a specific kind of tired that comes from doing a whole lot, but yet it feels like you finished nothing. Most people don't feel stuck because they're inactive. It's quite the opposite, actually. They feel stuck because their time is completely full. School, work, and obligations that don't really feel optional. Your days move quickly, your tasks get done, but when you look back, it's hard to describe what had actually changed, or at least what's meaningfully further along than it was before. That disconnect is more common than it seems. Being busy feels productive, it looks productive, and for a while it's convincing. But motion and direction aren't the same thing. A day can be packed and yet still lack momentum. When effort isn't tied to direction, it doesn't build, it just consumes attention, energy, and your time. And unfortunately, that is where frustration starts to set in. Work expands to fill the time you give it. That's Parkinson's law. A good way to see this isn't with school or work, it's actually with something very small. Think about cleaning a room. If you tell yourself you'll do it sometime this weekend, it lingers. You move a few things, you get distracted, and you come back to it later. It somehow takes days to feel finished. But if you know someone's coming over in an hour, the same room gets cleaned rather quickly. Not because you suddenly care more, not because you became more disciplined, but because the task now has a boundary attached to it. You stop rearranging things that don't matter, you stop circling around the task, you focus on what actually needs to be done. The room didn't change, the constraint did. And when life doesn't create those boundaries for us, effort doesn't disappear, it spreads across time, attention, and unfinished tasks. That's how days get full without anything feeling complete. This is where starting matters much more than motivation. Progress rarely begins with clarity. Clarity usually shows up after something has already begun. Once something is in motion, even imperfect, direction becomes easier to see. What matters separates itself from what doesn't. Without a clear boundary and without a clear start, activity increases but completion stays rare. That's how people end up busy without feeling forward. And this feeling is often misunderstood. The issue is not laziness and it isn't a lack of discipline. It's that effort gets distributed across too many things that aren't clearly connected. Your weeks blur together not because nothing is happening, but because nothing stands out as meaningfully progressing. Noticing this doesn't mean doing less or abandoning responsibility. It means paying attention to what your effort is accumulating toward. Some work builds skills, some work maintains stability, and some work simply fills space. All three can exist at the same time, but the problem starts when they're indistinguishable from one another. Progress doesn't require certainty, it requires occasional perspective. The goal isn't to optimize every hour or overhaul your life, it's to stay conscious of direction, even loosely. To recognize whether effort is contributing to something larger or simply keeping things moving. That awareness doesn't invalidate the work you're doing, it just gives it more context. If this feeling sounds familiar, it doesn't mean your effort has been wasted. Most progress doesn't announce itself while it's happening. It shows up later, when you finally have something to compare against. What often feels like stagnation is movement without a clear reference point. Direction doesn't replace effort, it gives effort something to accumulate toward. Without that reference, work blends together. Days blur, everything feels equally urgent and equally unfinished. With it, even small steps start to register, and not because they're dramatic, but because they're traceable. And once you can trace where your effort is going, the question that you have to ask yourself changes. Not, why am I so busy? But rather, what am I slowly building?